Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is SockBot, and today we are in a different setup because today we are doing a live tutorial that I'm going to try to make as simple as possible but as quick as possible because I believe this is the best way to do this. But today I wanted to talk about something that I've been running into in my most recent game, in Dreams, which has to do with turning actual playable characters into NPCs. And there's a lot more steps to this than you may expect, but the reason for this is a lot of different characters online are meant to be playable characters, and unfortunately, when you're creating a level using anybody else's assets or even using a combination of that in your own, you're going to run into the issue of all of these different characters that are so cool, but that you can't really use in your level because there's a bunch of extra logic that causes them to behave like playable characters instead of NPCs. And that messes up with the camera and a bunch of other things. And we're going to fix that all today. So that is the very summarized version of what we're going to talk about today. So if you enjoy this sort of tutorial, please feel free to leave a like down below. I'll try to talk a little bit slowly, but we got a lot to get through. So yeah, again, leave a like if you like this video. If you want to see more, feel free to subscribe, but no pressure at all whatsoever. I do post quite a bit of Dreams content and some more Little Big Planet as of recent. So feel free to stick around or you know, whatever you're in the mood for. But let's get right into the tutorial. So I'm going to hit edit. This is, like I said, a level that I've been working on, and this is going to be in a future video as well, because the goal for this level was to create an entire unique game with a unique story entirely from assets from other people. I've been talking about this recently, but I think it's a great idea to use assets from other people, because a lot of people are making their own assets and then not having enough time to actually create a level. But, well, that's kind of dull, because then you just have all these pretty assets and nothing to do with them. But that's what I was doing for a lot of the different patrons in this bar, because I wanted them to be cool and interesting and to react differently to the character, but not be a character themselves. And so what we're going to start with today is we're going to go to search here, and we're going to pick out a character. And I'm actually going to do one I've already done, just because I know this one does display all of the things that I want to talk about today, which is the majority of the different things that you will have to change from a playing character to turn them into an NPC. So we're going to plonk her down. She's going to fall down to the ground like the heavy-suited human that she is. She's supposed to be a human, but she looks more like a halfling from D&D. But yeah, we're going to pause the game, click the right stick to pause that game, and we're going to do quite a few things. So starting with number 1, you're going to scope into the character by holding L1 and pressing X. And immediately you're going to see all of this different stuff, which might look familiar if you watched my video on how to get to the quote-unquote secret directions behind each character. And here you can go ahead and edit the character if you want to change any of the different sculptures. You can scope all the way in to create that, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're just going to take this exact character and turn her into an NPC. So first, I don't like this number, and that's the easiest thing to get rid of, and so it's a good place to start. So you're going to go down, and if you see this puppet logic, you can use this part of the tutorial. So scope into the puppet logic, because it's actually a circuit board, as you can see by this tiny little thing in the corner here. That means that it's a circuit board, or microchip. I always forget which one is Little Big Planet, which one is Dreams, but circuit board or microchip, and it'll pull up the puppet logic. And generally it'll look like this for most characters. If it doesn't, try to find stuff that looks like what I'm saying, because people don't really change a lot from this, even if they change anything at all. But we're going to go in here, and you're going to actually scope into the controller logic, because it's another circuit board within a circuit board, and I'm just going to move this around so it's not behind that table. And you're going to go in here, and to get rid of this number, you can tell it's above their head, and it's a health modifier, meaning it's a health display of the health that the character has, if it's hooked in up here to current health, and there's a number displayer. That's what that is. It's very simple, but if you didn't know, you might just think it's material that somehow follows the camera, which is kind of silly, and that's what I thought. So hopefully you're not as silly as me. But if you are, here you go. Go ahead and delete that to get rid of the number above her head. Super simple. So next, we're going to check something that's actually not on this character, and this was the only thing that wasn't, but it's pretty simple. If there's anything that's linking into this respawn here, you want to delete that wire, and you can delete wires by just hovering over them and pressing triangle. So feel free to delete any of the wires that are put into respawn here, because even if you want your enemies to respawn, all of these characters are going to be set to respawn as playable characters. So generally they'll respawn from the nearest checkpoint or something of the sort, and normally it will be a wire linked from is dead all the way to respawn, and that's not what we want for this character. And for the most part, it's probably not what you want either. So go ahead and delete that. And that is part 1 and 2. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to scope further into the controller sensor, but it's not really scoping it, it's actually just going to the settings of it. So that's L1 and square on the DualShock, and triangle and square, triangle on the left and square on the right, move controllers if you're using those. Open this up, and we're only going to change one thing, so you really don't have to worry about any of this, but go ahead over here to the little imp, which is important properties. Weird that you can't even see that up there. But you're going to go to possession mode and turn it off. Just turn it off, hit none. You don't want this character possessible. And yeah, there you go. That solves that, turns it into a very basic NPC. But there's a few more things that we have to change, because this may be an NPC now, but a lot of NPCs are set to automatically follow you around or look at imp or something like that. And for her, we want her to be just sitting at a table, or I guess reaching for a table because she's pretty small, maybe reaching for the bar like this one. But we don't want her to stare at imp, we don't want her to stare at the character, we just want her to mind her own business like a good NPC. And so you're going to go back, close all those menus from the puppet logic, and we're going to edit the logic of the puppet itself. So hold L1 and press square, and if something like this shows up, it's the wrong menu. So you're going to want to close that, and you're going to want to scope in. Let's see if we can get to her actual body. It doesn't look like we're going to, but... Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is always different for characters, and this is why it's kind of confusing here. So you want to open up these properties. These are the basic puppet properties or the advanced puppet properties. They're always going to be available somehow if it's an actual NPC. So if you did everything I said already, it is an actual character, and so that menu exists somewhere. Generally, you have to be scoped all the way out to access it, but for some characters, like the bartender, for example, I couldn't do that because this showed up, but if you scope into him and then do it, the blank puppet shows up. So depending on what character it is, you may have to play around, you may have to scope in, you may have to scope out. Again, scoping in is L1 and X, or scoping out is L1 and circle, or that's triangle and X and triangle, circle, and move controllers. But it stops at X. I think you know that by this point. But for this one, we just have to do it on completely scoped out, not scoped in anything, and it'll pull it up. And what we want to do from here is we want to go over to behavior, and we want to make sure that none of these are turned on. I don't want this character reacting at all to my imp or to the character, but if you do, you can change the characters. But for this one, we're just going to turn them all off. And so you could see it worked for these two for some reason, but not for this. And I've actually seen that quite a lot. But the reason that it does that, I can't tell you because I have no idea. But if it does say something here, like for follow, it should say follow me by default. I believe that's actually what this guy had on him originally, or one of these guys did. Let's check this one. So if you look in this one really quick, you can see here it says turn towards look at me and look at me. And that's not what we want for this character. It is what we want for him because we want him to stare this character down because he's a knight and she's a bad girl. As you can obviously tell, she looks exactly like the girl from Enchanted. Definitely not a recolor of that. But for this one's not showing any of it. It's just already all unhighlighted, or in this case, there's no tag input here. But if there was, and for example, with that guy, we'll go in and again do this. If you see something like this and you don't want it to exist, just turn it off by clicking these two things here and make sure that they turn off. Or, for some things, I've seen a lot of issues with this, especially with the bartender over here. It just doesn't work, and you can't turn it off for some reason or other, so you want to click here and just delete all the text. And you want to do that for anything that you don't want it to work for. And once you delete all of the text in there, if you can turn it off, great. If you can't, just leave it blank on text, because generally any tag you're using will have a name for it, so if there's no name, it should be fine. And so once you do that, you can even turn off auto look, which will stop them from looking at imp at all. Close that out, and yeah, then we're set. So now, first, let's double check with this girl. Okay, she's not looking, she's not following, and if we pull imp out, we can't possess her, which is exactly what we want. So she is done for, she's donezo. But for this one, over here, you can tell that all the other knights are looking at me still, but that one's not. And obviously that's not what I wanted here, I just wanted to show you those settings. So that's the way to get them to stop looking at you. Now, a lot of the time this will solve the random NPC that happens to follow you all around the map, oops, and you don't want that for the most part. But sometimes, for this guy, he decided to just jump over the bar and start running after me, and I had no idea what was going on. For some reason, this bartender follows you by default, but again, all you gotta do, get to this menu however you can, scoping in or out, and then make sure you hit L1 and square or triangle and square and turn these off. You can even turn this one off if you want. Don't really see the difference between that and the other look at me, but maybe someone in the comments can tell me what the difference is between those. But yes, that is how, in a very long-winded way, you turn off all of the information that has to do with those characters. Now, if you do run into any more issues, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. For one more thing, I want to say that for this character, you can see that there's a camera here. Sometimes I've seen that cameras are hooked up incorrectly by other players, and that means that for some reason, no matter what camera is conflicting with them, the imp will always follow this camera for some silly reason, and you'll just be locked at this character even though everything else about them says NPC. So if you need to, just go ahead and delete that camera. And again, you normally won't need to, but just in case, feel free to do that. And it frees up a tiny bit of thermometer space anyways. But that's how you turn a playing character into an NPC. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like down below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Hopefully I can answer them, and if I can't, I will play around until I can, or maybe someone else will answer before I can do that. But hope you're having a wonderful day. Like the video if you liked it. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, especially if you want to see the conclusion of this level, which is a mashup of as many things that I thought fit together as possible into something that I think is pretty cool, where, here's a little preview, you actually don't play as her, you play as this little ghosty, which is really cute, and she follows him around, and because she's so creepy and doesn't have a chin, I may make her a puppet, like an actual canonical puppet. Haven't decided yet, but if you enjoy this sort of thing and you want to see that more, feel free to subscribe so that you get notified when it does come out. But either way, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. I will talk to you guys in the next video. Goodbye! You can see Imp flew all over the place because I got too excited. Oh.